Certain moments in life carve a chasm between what was and what will be, and that seemingly ordinary afternoon shattered my world. The day began with routine indifference. Danny, my husband, packing for another business trip, his suitcase a silent testament to the distance between us. For 3 years, his disinterest had chipped away at me, leaving solitude as my only solace. Today I intended to steal a moment for myself, a rare indulgence in a life that felt increasingly hollow. In the sanctuary of my bedroom, I arranged my favorite silk bedding, the fabric cool and inviting against my skin. My laptop hummed softly, casting a faint glow, and a few personal items lay within reach, promising an escape I'd long neglected. These moments were sacred, especially now that Cole, Danny's son from his first marriage, was back from university. His presence filled the house with an undeniable energy, one I tried to ignore. I still remember our first meeting, his towering frame, sharp jawline, and piercing eyes that seemed to see straight through me. It was a fleeting thought, one I buried deep, convincing myself it meant nothing. Knowing Cole was out with friends until evening, I felt secure. I retreated to my room, the door clicking shut, or so I thought. As I sank into the plush bedding, my body began to unwind, guided by the soft, suggestive sounds from my laptop. The world faded, my senses alive with anticipation, until a creak shattered the spell. The door swung open, and there stood Cole, our eyes locked, time stretching into an eternity. My hands fumbled to conceal the sleek device buzzing in my grip, but it was too late. The sultry moans from the screen filled the room, and Cole's eyes widened, a storm of shocked curiosity, and something darker, hunger, swirling within them. My body froze, heat flooding my cheeks, as shame collided with an unexpected thrill. His gaze didn't waver, and in that moment, I wasn't just Elena, the neglected wife. I was a woman seen, desired, alive. I should have knocked. Cole stammered, his voice deep, unsteady, yet laced with something raw. He took a slow step back, his eyes clinging to mine, until the door snapped shut. I collapsed onto the bed, my face buried in my hands, heart pounding like a drum. What had just happened? At 42, I was unraveling under the gaze of my stepson, a man half my age. The memory of his expression, shock laced with yearning, ignited a warmth I couldn't suppress. It was wrong, forbidden, yet the thought of it sent a shiver down my spine. That night, sleep was a stranger. The next day, silence hung heavy between us. Cole stayed in his room, and I busied myself in the kitchen, our avoidance, a tacit acknowledgement of the tension simmering beneath the surface. By evening, I sought refuge in a steaming shower, the water cascading over my skin, failing to wash away the image of Cole's fervent gaze. I was lost in thought when the power cut out, plunging the bathroom into darkness. Panic flared briefly. I shut off the water, wrapped myself in a bathrobe, and fumbled with the belt, the fabric clinging to my damp skin. "Elena, you okay?" Cole's voice called from the hallway, steady but laced with concern. "I'm fine. Just, the power's out," I replied, my voice trembling as I stepped into the dim corridor. I followed his voice to the kitchen, where a faint glow from a streetlight cast shadows across the room. "We need a candle," Cole said, his tone tight as if he, too, felt the weight of our proximity. As I moved through the shadowed space, I collided with him, my shoulder brushing his chest. We froze, breath-catching. His hands found my waist, steadying me, but the touch lingered, electric, sending a pulse of heat through me. "Sorry I didn't see you," he murmured, his voice a low whisper that caressed my senses. Our eyes met, barely illuminated by the faint light, and the pull between us was undeniable, a magnetic force drawing us closer. "It's okay," I whispered, my voice quivering despite my efforts to stay composed. My heart thundered, and I was certain he could hear it. Cole's gaze drifted to my lips, his breath warm against my face as the distance between us shrank to nothing. "Elena," he murmured, his voice thick with unspoken longing. In that moment, every barrier I'd clung to began to crumble. The lights flickered back on, and we sprang apart as if caught in a forbidden act. Cole stepped toward the breaker box, feigning interest, but the tension between us crackled unresolved. I retreated to the living room, my pulse racing, and Cole followed, his gaze still fixed on me, now burning with resolve. "Elena, we need to talk," he said, his tone carrying a weight that promised no ordinary conversation. I sat across from him, the air thick, almost suffocating. We both knew this moment had been inevitable, and nothing would be the same after. Cole's voice softened, his eyes lowering. "I'm sorry about yesterday. If I made you uncomfortable, that wasn't my intention. I should have looked away when I saw the door open." His words faltered, searching for the right ones, but I couldn't stop myself. He confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart raced, warmth spreading across my cheeks. I nodded, struggling to maintain composure. "Yesterday, I was mortified," I admitted, my voice trembling, "but I don't blame you. It's just, this house feels so empty. Everything feels wrong lately." Cole lifted his gaze, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that stole my breath. "You're not what's wrong, Elena. What's wrong is Danny not being here, leaving you like this." His words hit like a tidal wave, exposing the truth I'd buried. Danny's absence wasn't just physical, it was emotional, a void that had consumed me. "It doesn't matter," I murmured, my voice lacking conviction. "It does matter," Cole insisted, leaning closer, his voice firm yet tender. "How can it not? You're lonely, Elena, and it's not your fault." Tears pricked my eyes as his words dismantled the walls I'd built. "Loneliness," I whispered. I thought I was used to it, but sometimes it's overwhelming. I don't know how to cope. Cole reached out his hand, covering mine, the warmth of his touch sending a jolt through me. "You shouldn't have to feel this way," he said, his voice steady, resolute. "Someone like you shouldn't be this alone." For a moment, I was lost in the sincerity of his words, the weight of his hand anchoring me. His gaze held mine, and I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. Cole meant every word, desperate to shift the tension I grasped at a safer topic. "I wanted to ask about Carly," I said, my voice steadier. "I was worried when you said you'd broken up." "Why? Now?" Cole hesitated, then took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving mine. "I haven't felt anything for her in a long time," he admitted. "That relationship was over months ago, but I couldn't admit it until now." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. "Why now?" I pressed, my voice barely audible. The space between us seemed to shrink, his breath mingling with mine. "Because of you, Elena," he said softly, his voice unwavering. "Carly didn't matter anymore because you're all I think about. You have been for a while. That's why I ended it." My lips parted, but words failed me. Cole's hands found my waist, drawing me closer, our faces inches apart. The air crackled with anticipation, a line we both knew we couldn't uncross. When his lips brushed mine, time stopped. His kiss was warm, deliberate, a release of every suppressed longing. My heart raced, my body responding to the magnetic pull between us. I melted into him, the world fading until nothing existed but this moment. I pulled back, breathless, my eyes searching his. "I've been drawn to you for so long," Cole, I confessed, the words spilling out as every barrier crumbled. We sat in silence, the weight of our admission settling over us, a turning point neither of us could ignore. I stood, my resolve firm, the loneliness I'd endured too heavy to bear. Cole's eyes followed me, a mix of surprise and desire flickering within them. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice steady, unflinching. I'd held myself back for too long, and stopping now felt impossible. Slowly, I loosened the belt of my robe, letting the fabric slide off my shoulders, pooling at my feet. The cool air kissed my skin as I moved to the plush couch in the living room, reclining against the cushions, my body an invitation. Cole didn't hesitate. He shed his clothes with deliberate care, each movement charged with purpose, his knee pressed into the couch beside me, his hands bracing against the cushions, as he leaned in, his breath warm against my skin. Our eyes locked, and his lips found mine again, this time with a hunger that consumed us both. The kiss was a spark, igniting every suppressed desire, every forbidden thought born of loneliness. His hands traced my waist, their touch both gentle and commanding, sending waves of heat through me. My fingers grazed his shoulders, feeling the strength beneath his skin, and I let out a soft sigh, lost in the intensity of his presence. The world outside ceased to exist. There was only Cole, his warmth, his certainty filling the void Danny had left behind. Every touch, every whispered breath awakened something within me I'd thought long buried. As our connection deepened, my body trembled, a rush of sensation overwhelming me. I clung to him, my nails pressing into his back, and he responded with a low, fervent sound that sent a thrill through me. In that moment, we were bound by something raw, inevitable, and all-consuming. The wrongness of it all faded, replaced by a sense of being truly seen, truly wanted. Danny was gone for 2 more days, and in that time Cole and I surrendered to the pull between us. Each stolen moment was a blaze, erasing the boundaries of propriety. His presence filled the emptiness, making me feel alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. When Danny returned, his apathy unchanged, the contrast was stark. The loneliness I'd endured in his absence, coupled with the fire I'd found with Cole, underscored the chasm between us. Even with Danny home, Cole and I exchanged secret messages, each word a spark reigniting our connection. One evening, Danny announced a work meeting that would keep him out all night. A smile curved my lips as anticipation surged through me. I typed a message to Cole: "Danny's gone tonight. Just us. I can't wait to see you." My fingers hovered over the send button, heart racing before I pressed it, a faint smile spreading as I imagined the night ahead. Unbeknownst to me, Cole was entangled in a heated confrontation with his ex, Carly. Her obsession had pushed him to his limit, and he was done. Enough, he told her, his voice firm but weary. "Stay out of my life. I'm done." His phone buzzed with my message, catching Carly's eye. Her face twisted as she glimpsed the screen, her fake smile vanishing. "I knew it," she hissed, venom in her tone. "I saw you two together." Cole lunged for his phone, but Carly held it tight. "I'll tell Danny everything," she spat, her voice dripping with malice. "I've been watching you both." Cole's heart sank, the situation spiraling beyond his control. That evening, Cole told me about his argument with Carly. "I talked to her yesterday," he said, his voice calm but strained. "I told her to leave me alone. It's over." His words eased my nerves, but a nagging dread lingered. The next day, Danny's behavior shifted. Normally distant, he was suddenly attentive, his eyes following me with a hint of suspicion. "Everything okay, Elena? Anything going on?" he asked, his tone probing. His scrutiny intensified, and by evening my anxiety was palpable. I texted Cole: "Danny's acting strange. He seems suspicious." "I'm scared." As I hit send, the doorbell rang. Danny opened the door and Carly's voice echoed down the hall. My heart stopped as I saw her standing there, a smug smirk on her lips, her gaze darting between me and Cole. She knew everything, and she'd come to wield that knowledge like a weapon. Elena Carly purred her tone, mocking, her eyes glinting with malice. "Looks like we have a lot to talk about." Her smile widened as she glanced at Cole, then back to me. Danny, still oblivious, frowned. "Carly? "What's this about?" he asked, confusion in his voice. In that moment, my world teetered on the edge. My hands trembled as I met Cole's gaze, his eyes mirroring my fear. Carly stood as the most dangerous presence in the room, her silent threat hanging over us like a storm cloud. My mind raced with questions. What did she know? What would she say? Would she destroy everything? And as her smirk deepened, I realized this was only the beginning.